Yeah, it's interesting how you talked about the challenge of living, working, and studying in the same room. But I'm also interested to know what other problems or other hurdles you've come across in working from home, like maybe asking for clarification with work or help, I guess, from coworkers.
Um, for me, my work is largely independent, except for I when I do ask for help, um I usually talk to my prof like one on one, but we have like a lab meeting every single Monday. So I'm cramming that neuroscience every Sunday, but that's a different issue. Um, but every Monday we have a lab meeting and we go through any problems, and then we share that with the prof and other members of the lab, and see if like, oh, if I have a problem with the software, another person is like, oh, I encountered that issue, like this is how you solve it. So it was a pretty good environment, but that's only Monday. So when you have other issues, it's a lot of emails, and then it becomes like one sentence emails. It's like, can you send me this thing? And then back and forth. So there is a bit of a delay in that, because my prof only works from 9 to 5. So if I send an email at like 4 p.m., he probably won't get back to me the next day. So that's a little unfortunate, but we make it work.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly communication as well, because whenever let's say I get an error or something, um, it's a little harder to describe the issue I'm having over, like, let's say Skype or an email, as opposed to having someone actually looking over your shoulder and sort of telling you like what to do. So yeah, I've been finding that sometimes, like, there's been misunderstandings where I say I'm getting this error, and then my coworker would tell me like the solution to a different error, and then I'd have to sort of re-explain, and then uh, yeah, that's most of the trouble I've been having working from home as opposed to working from an office space.
Mm. Yeah, communication definitely is a pretty big problem. Like you mentioned, like communicating the errors you get, asking questions and things like that. And I think like also a huge part of like working in a job, something that people generally look forward to is being able to work with the team and getting that feel of the experience of like working as part of something bigger. And I was wondering, like during this pandemic, working remotely, have you gotten the opportunity to really get to know your team or interact with them, or has it been just more like individual work with just like occasional talking?
um I think I'm lucky in the sense that, like, because before you apply for the grant, you obviously have to talk to a prof. And I had been volunteering in his lab all year long, so I kind of knew some members of the lab. Like, I think I got to, because he's always taking out more students as well, and then there are students that go away for co-op or whatever, and then come back for the summer. So the first few lab meetings are still a little bit awkward, a little dry. Like, you don't know what you can say and what jokes you can make, because you haven't really met everyone in person. So that's been a challenge. Yeah, definitely. I wish I could see them in person, but it is what it is.
I've met my supervisor, but I haven't met anyone else on my team. And yeah, I've been looking forward to hopefully having the offices open up so I could meet everyone else and put a face to the voices that I've been hearing over conference calls.
Yeah, so I know how there are a lot of difficulties with getting to know your coworkers and communication in general during this pandemic. So the next question is specifically for Chelsea. How different has research been for you at home compared to working in an actual wet lab?
Um, I've actually, during my time volunteering with my prof, I've never actually really done like any kind of wet lab. I've just gone into the lab to because we use data we use patient information from the LHSC, which is like the London Health something. This is the London Health System, and that's like privileged like patient information. So I can't access information from my computer. So I would have to go into the lab, and it was a very specific time. Like I think it was like Tuesday from like 10 to 12. I would go in and use that, and I'd be able to like interact with the not only lab members, but like there would be other like grad students and like neurologists and stuff who are in the lab, like using the computers and stuff. And being at home, there's not that. Again, it goes back to that work ethic kind of a thing. It's very like I get to choose when I wanna. I get to choose whenever I wanna do work or whatnot, which sometimes turns out to be like 2 to 4 a.m. So there's that.
So you mentioned that like getting the information was like confidential patient information. How do you access data right now?
So what I'm doing is the gist of it is that he had another pathologist working on a project for him, and then that pathologist was looking at like the same protein, but looking at tauopathy, which is tau aggregates. Anyway, the other pathologist looking at this protein in the subthalamic nuclei of the patient's brains. So she's already done all the scanning and all the wet lab stuff. So when she scanned the images, she scanned for the subthalamic nuclei, but it also included the thalamus. So she only looked at the subthalamic nuclei. So she's given me all those images, and I'm just analyzing the thalamus now. So she sent me all the files because it's not really attached. There's no like. I'm sure he had to apply for some kind of a thing because I do have like a London Health like account, but yeah, it bypasses a lot more of the sensitive issues. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess just moving back a little bit, I know that you guys both found your jobs prior to this whole pandemic, but do you guys have any tips for individuals trying to find a job right now during the pandemic?
Hey, I'd say take the time you have right now because I'm sure a lot of people are sitting at home, not being able to go out and spend their time doing things outside. So I'd recommend spending this time to maybe work on a few projects if you're trying to get a software development job, because I know when even without the pandemic, when I was looking for a job and a lot of my other friends as well, uh, we all kind of realized the week before we were supposed to apply that our resumes were pretty empty. We didn't really have many projects on there. We didn't have any work experience. So that's when the projects really come in handy. So we kind of spent the week really stressing over balancing school, polishing our resumes, and building all these projects all within 1 week so that we could apply for the first round of co-op. So now that there is this pandemic and people aren't spending as much time outside with their friends, I recommend using this time to get a head start on building some projects if you don't already have any, and having a nicer resume when applying.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely, I really feel that energy. Like when I finished first year, I came back home and it took me, I wasn't able to really find my job until June. And even when I did, it wasn't like specifically like related to like what I was interested. Like it wasn't like science. But although that's kind of hard when you're not like in a at like a university town or something like that. In addition to building your resumes and stuff, if it's really, I think I would also really recommend applying for scholarships right now, because I didn't find so last year all of May I didn't have a job, and then June, July, August I worked like 7 days a week, every day of the week basically. But that's another issue. But in that month of May, I applied to probably like a dozen scholarships, and honestly, I got more money from scholarships than I did working for like 3 months. So if you're and so if if you're like if financial issue is like a stressor on you, definitely scholarship is the way to go. Also, there's a lot of great online opportunities. So in all of high school, I taught English online. I know there are a couple of companies that do this. They'll set you up with some with like elementary age like kids in China, and then you can just video chat with them, and they usually give you a curriculum, and then it's just to really like tutor them and just like talk to them in English. Um, and I know a lot of people make like hourly wages doing that, and I did that for a while as well, like all of high school, and it wasn't. Although I didn't do it with a company, I just had some family friends, but it's good. It's a good way to make money when you're in during this pandemic because everything is online anyways.
Just to add on to the whole tutoring online, another great way to make money is off of Fiverr. Fiverr is like a website where people people they want specific tasks done, but they don't have the skills to do that. For example, like web development, Photoshop. And if you have those skills done, people will pay you a good amount to just sit at home, spend five to 10 minutes, or maybe 1 hour working on a simple task, and you can get a lot of money off of that. And that's kind of like a side hustle that you could probably start as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely valid, especially like if people are being laid off and if you don't feel very comfortable like working in the front line or like going out, like having these options of still being able to make money at home, I think is definitely very, very helpful. Um, I guess there's kind of like adding on to like tips for like finding a job or like, and you did give some great resources. I was just wondering if you had any tips for people who were working from home, like just from your experience, anything you've learned, things like things that people can do or things that people absolutely probably shouldn't be doing.